Welcome to the Elevate Your Event podcast, where we talk about how to plan and execute an unforgettable event that will dazzle your guests and generate more income for your organization. From fundraising and securing trendy auction items to event production and logistics, get the best tips and advice from seasoned fundraising and event professionals who have been in your shoes.
Well, welcome back to Elevate Your Event podcast, and we've got some special guests, Lori Mackay and Dinah Duplanche from Handbid.
Hello. Hello.
Very excited. I'm Jeff Porter, CEO of Handbid, and we are very excited to have you on the show with us today. What are we going to talk about today?
Oh, I love this subject. Yeah. We already know what we're talking about because we're organized.
Yes. Kind of event planning kind of thing.
Silent auctions, everything auctions.
Items.
No, don't you say atoms?
Atoms.
Did I get that right?
Atoms.
Like South Carolina kind of thing.
Certain people in South Carolina pronounce it atoms.
Atoms, okay.
I don't. They're items.
Okay.
But I call it silent auction items.
Okay.
So there's another curveball, Jeff.
Okay, I love it. I love curveballs. Especially when they're signed by a famous baseball player and put in an auction. Okay,
with a certificate
of authenticity.
Authentic, by the way. So we're going to talk about this came up the other day when we were chatting, and we were like, okay, so what are the things that you could do to make your auction better, and also what are the things that you could do to make it worse?
Yes.
And then we got so excited in the conversation, it got a little heated. But it was all good stuff, and we decided we were going to come on the show and share it with you guys today. So I can start. I can throw one out there.
Okay, go for it.
I think one of the things, and this is going to sound fairly obvious coming from me, but one of the things that you could do to make your silent auction worse is to use paper bid sheets.
Yes. People are mean with paper bid sheets.
I mean,
they are mean.
Yeah.
They just bully people, stand over their bid sheet, don't let people bid on something after them. They're kind of mean sometimes.
It's called intimidation, bid sheet intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a real thing.
It is a real thing.
And what about pen stealers?
Pen stealers?
Paper stealers?
Oh, just how about the bid sheet stealer?
Yes, I was going to say the bid sheet
And you don't think that happens? It happened at my own event, okay?
Oh, yeah, you saw it.
And it's like, how could there be sheets of bids on all these items, and here's this one item won by this one lady, and it has 3 bids on it.
Something's odd. Something's odd here.
Yeah, that bid sheet was missing for most of the auction and then mysteriously reappeared right when things were closing. So.
Well, here's another one about paper bid sheets. I mean, usually there's libation going on at these events, and I forget what I have my name printed down on. So after one glass of champagne, I'm like, wait a minute, which item? So then you have to go around and try to remember where the heck you put your name down and figure out if you're
what
still
happened
winning.
To your planning organizing?
I know, Jeff.
I can't believe you didn't write it down.
Exactly, Diana.
I know I should have done that.
In your personal notepad.
It's been a long time since I've been to a paper auction. If I really
Can you imagine someone at the paper auction is got their iPhone out and typing down what they bid on? No,
that's awesome.
But you want to hear a funny intimidation story. So we're talking to this client, and they were telling us before they had started using mobile bidding that they did paper bid sheets, and they were a baseball club. And so this was at the baseball stadium, and they had this bat. And here's this little old lady, and you think she's totally harmless, but she stood right next to the bid sheet. And people would come up and say, oh, that's a signed bat from this famous baseball player. I'm going to bid on it. And she'd say, I'm bidding on this bat for my grandson. I'm like, oh, okay. He really likes this player. You don't want to take this present away from my grandson, do you?
Oh, my God. She went for the jugular, man. She was not messing around. She was like Grandma of the Year. She was going to get the award.
That's right.
Oh, my gosh. So what happened? Do you remember?
Well, so, she was intimidating people out of bidding. And they're like, how do we tell this nice old lady to, take a hike?
She needs to go sit down.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh,
so they're like, oh, so nice with mobile bidding. People can bid from anywhere, and she can't really bother us. And then we did another auction once for an NBA team. And it was funny. They had moved from paper to mobile, and they were all for it. Okay, there's no doubt about it. The staff was ready for it. One of their bidders was not, okay? And he had, equivalent of an adult meltdown,
yes.
and stood in front of the bid sheets and put his arms out and said, "These are mine."
Wow.
Wow.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
taking
Can we
it
also
to
talk about not combining paper bid sheets with mobile bidding software? Like
Oh.
either or.
Yeah,
Pick
not
one.
if you want to give yourself a lot of work.
Yeah.
And you
haste.
really want to
If
make your
you-
bidders mad.
The
Yeah,
whole
and
point
confused.
the whole point
Yeah.
of mobile bidding software is to be all inclusive and right there at the fingertips of the guest, and do not confuse them by trying to do some sort of hybrid. Some of your items are paper bid sheets, some of them are mobile, items or whatever. No, just
Especially
pick
when
one
they
and
can't
stick with
figure
it.
out where to go to bid anyway.
Yes.
So totally agree with you. And and it's funny, we've seen that, and we've had to come in and kind of put our foot down a little bit and say, you're actually going to make this worse. You're not going to make this better. But getting back to, like, in terms of worse and better, there's ways to measure that. That can be in how you frustrate your guests. That would frustrate
Yeah.
your guests for sure. It also could be in how much money you make. And so we talk about this a lot. And so if we stay on the concept of paper bid sheets, one of the things you can't do with paper bid sheets is pre-bidding.
Oh.
And oh my God, I feel like so we started doing auctions on mobile bidding back in 2011. So 2011, 2012 time frame. The big thing that people saw as the advantage was pre-bidding. And I remember there was one school in town, and we roll into their event on Friday night, and they were just absolutely thrilled. And I'm like, why are you guys already happy? I mean, it's great that you're already happy, but like the event hasn't started yet. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. We made more money this week in pre-bidding than we did last year.
I love it.
And why not, right? I
Right.
mean, because you've got people now, not only are you starting to get more revenue out of it, what else are you doing? You're getting people comfortable with the software.
Oh, totally comfortable. It works out all the kinks. I like to think of it as widening the window with which people can bid. I mean, if you have a paper bid auction, it's when the doors open and when you close the auction or when you pick up the paper bid sheets. But with pre-bidding, I mean, it can be whatever you decide.
Yeah.
We usually see, what do we see? Like a week is about average,
Yeah.
maybe 2 weeks.
Like that. 5
Yeah,
days.
5
Yeah.
days is pretty normal.
So
It's-
you're turning an auction from hours into days. And when you give
Yeah.
people more time to bid, it actually does work.
And the audience is increased. So you've gone from just the people that have the opportunity locally to come to your event and bid on your auction. Now you have grandma out in Illinois can now can bid on an item for her grandson's school in Colorado.
Without standing next to the guy that's bidding on it,
Right.
intimidating him, right?
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Or I'm at a family wedding and I can't come anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I still want to participate. I still want to bid on that item. I can do it now.
Yeah.
So
Bigger
yeah.
audience, more fun.
So let's talk about another advantage of mobile bidding over paper bid sheets, since we're on the topic, would be, and this is not intuitive to most people, and it wasn't, I would even say to my organization when we started with mobile bidding, it was intuitive to us, but it makes sense now that we think about it, and that is lowering your bid increments. Right? And everybody thinks, like, so here, we call it like the cost to bid, right? And so when you had a paper auction and you had your kind of classic gala, and so everybody kind of, what do? So how's the event flow? So they walk in the door, they check in, they go to the bar, they grab their drink, they browse the auction area, maybe using their iPhone to write down what they bid on. Okay, it's a brilliant idea. Okay, and then they go in, and eventually the glasses ding, and they go sit in the seated, plated dinner in the ballroom, separate room, and at that point, maybe they've been outbid, maybe they haven't. They don't know. That's one problem. But are they really going to get up out of their seat, walk out of that room, go back over to an item to increase their bid by $5? Probably not, right? That's a lot to ask, okay? To whip out my phone, look at it, and then increase my bid by $5, easy, okay? So what do people do with paper bid sheets? They increase the bid increments. So if you have an item, say it's worth $1,000, and so you start the bidding, say you started at something high like $500, you're probably going to put a $100 bid increment on it. Mm-hmm. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to go there and say, oh, that thing's worth $1,000, although I do honestly believe people undervalue items more than they overvalue them. Oh, yeah, maybe that's worth $800 or $900. I'll bid $500, okay? Now you're asking the next person to bid $600. And that's a big ask. Okay. I may or may not be willing to spend 600. Usually if that's the start for me, I'll probably pass. If you had asked me to bid 510, 515, 520 on it, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening after a couple of bids? Like the mentality shifts, right? We see this all the time. Everybody who comes up at checkout and they're like, I can't believe I spent this much money on this item, but there was no way I was going to lose.
I
right?
didn't want to be the loser.
Yes. And so it's true. It does work, right? Where so now once you get someone bidding 2, 3, 4, 5 times, all of a sudden it's not about what they're spending. It's about the competition that comes from the bidding back and forth and being outbid and wanting to ultimately win.
It's a psychological component.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And charities can take advantage of that.
Right. And Diana and I both have special needs children, so we are experts in psychology. There's no doubt about it.
Totally
so we
true.
totally get all this. Yes. And so, but it's interesting when we talk to folks and they're coming from paper and we're talking to them about their auction, like, hey, what can we do to, should we open our auction early? Yes. The other thing you should do is start your items lower and you need to decrease your bid increments. Oh, well, then I'm not going to make as much money. No, in fact, actually, you're going to make more. And the reason you're going to make more is you're going to get more people bidding. And so, back in the day in the paper, I remember, and this is, we used to use, my wife was into the whole preschool and school auctions for our kids. They would track revenue per item. Well, we track bids per active bidder.
Right.
Right? That's what we track. Because we can go into an auction, put the revenue aside, we can see bids per active bidder, and we can know how well that auction did.
Right. What would you say is a good number of bids per bidder for an average event?
I like 10 or above, honestly.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. I was wondering if that shifted. I think in the last maybe several years, when I talk to folks, I see 7 bids per bidder. I call that a good auction. 10 is about great.
Yep.
Yeah, 10 bids per bidder.
And if we go in and it's 3, and first thing I do, I go look at the bid increments. And they're nuts. I mean, like, we will literally go through and we'll pull out all the items in a spreadsheet, and we'll calculate the bid increments, and we'll say, really? So you started this item at $100 and you put a $50 bid increment on it, and it's worth $300. Like, you're gonna get 3 bids, like max. I mean, probably 1 bid. Right. So that's the stuff we've seen in the past that just doesn't work. And but think about it this way, right? One, when I'm on paper bid sheets, I'm asking somebody to, get up out of their seat and physically go, burn some calories to bid. And 2, my auctions are typically short, right? I mean, if I started at 6 and there's bid sheets out, and back then, and live auctioneers were probably still like this today. If you have paper bid sheets, they probably want your auction closed before the live auction starts because they don't want people leaving the room to go bid on stuff. And so now you've got 6 to 8, 2 hours. Like, you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, if I make my bid increments $5, no one's going to bid. Well, or they're not going to have enough time. Well, here's the beauty of it. 1, you've been pre-bidding all week, right? And 2, you don't have to close your your silent auction before you're live. And you should not allow your auctioneer to talk you into that anyway. So
That sounds
we
like
should repeat that. Like,
Yeah.
you should not allow your live auctioneer to talk you into that anyway.
And it sounds like a podcast for later, Jeff.
Exactly, it does.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah. So anyway, I do think that makes a big, big difference. And so obviously then the question is so what do you guys tell your clients or the folks that you're coaching on where to set starting bids and bid increments?
Lori?
I typically say whatever the fair market value is, around 40% of that is your starting price. And then your bid increment would be 10%-ish of your starting price.
I like that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly what I say. Yeah.
Obviously, you want to round a little bit. So
Yeah.
if 10% of your starting bid price is $7, you don't have to, like, although computers are amazing and mobile bidding will calculate it for you, people in their head are like thinking to themselves, 21, 28. I mean, you can go ahead and make it $5. Like, I would tend to round down in those cases. If it's 9, you can round to 10, but I like low bid increments. We've had some clients, I mean, it's nuts. They'll just do $5 for everything.
Yeah.
Or they'll do $1 for everything, and you're like,
Oh.
holy moly. And those things usually last for like a week, and then those are the ones that come in with 15,000 bids in the auction.
We've seen it.
Yes, we've seen that.
With schools. That's popular with schools, I would
It really
say.
is.
Yeah.
So, no, that's good. And then one of the things that you have to be careful of, because you do need to start with the fair market value. I think there's some things that we've learned. One is people tend to undervalue things. So the bidders tend to undervalue things. So showing the value sometimes can be helpful. And I know some people think, oh, I want to hide the value because they may think it's worth more. Those types of things are typically the unique experiences where everybody values them differently anyway.
And you can just mark it as priceless if you have the ability in your software to do that.
Right.
As well. So you can mark it as priceless. But again, to that point, when I'm coaching people, make sure you're not marking every item as priceless, because then it loses its value. I had one auction, like priceless, priceless, priceless. And I'm like, really? Is it all priceless what you have in your auction?
I think I saw that on Amazon, and it was worth like $250.
That wasn't priceless. So keep those to those really cool experiences, things that you can't quantify with a dollar amount, but that is something that is a unique experience for priceless. But yeah, agreed.
That could be like a famous meet and greet or, backstage passes somewhere. Those are hard to value because like for bands that I like, backstage passes would be worth a lot. But if it's a band I don't really care for, I don't really care. So I think it works great for that. The flip side, though, is that your donors tend to overvalue items. Okay. And so if you ever want to know why the chiropractor or the lawyer or the teeth whitening is not getting the bids that you expect.
Or the trainer, the personal trainer.
Or the portrait.
Oh, yes. Or the free portrait sitting, right? It's because you've got a photographer who's like, I'm going to do a free portrait sitting. It's going to be an hour. And then I'm going to give you a free 8x10, and this thing is worth $1,000, okay? And everybody's like, it's not really worth $1,000. So you look at it and you say, oh, well, they say it's worth $1,000, so I'm going to start the bidding at $400. Right? That's what you would do.
Right, typically.
And most people think it's worth $400.
Yeah.
So what do? They bid once.
Maybe.
Yeah. So it's funny. We'll go into events and I'll be like, oh, let's take these professional services and we're just gonna assume they're worth half of what your donor said, and we're gonna get these things low. We're gonna put a low bid increment on here, and we're gonna see what happens.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think professional services is one of those tricky areas. I would agree.
Totally.
I mean, I had one auction. It was like, oh, legal fees for,
right,
wills or something. I mean, it's just totally niche. Thanks, Diana Dupolshay.
I'm here for you.
But it's completely depends on if there's one person at the event that wants to buy legal fees from a random lawyer that they don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have to remember those things. And when working with clients, I'll typically talk to them about these items. And sometimes, a personal trainer or somebody might donate 10 sessions, which is really lovely. We don't want to limit that, and we don't want to devalue that. Then you can mark that item as maybe a minimum bid or something, but you can maybe start it at a lower price.
Yeah.
So something along those lines, where the trainer really wants to get $500. They feel like they really donated something of value for their time. So you can honor them that way. But yeah, those professional services can be
Okay. You want to hear the funniest one?
tricky.
Oh my God.
I do.
Oh boy.
We're at a school auction.
Hold on, people.
And they've got no bids on this item. And the guy's like, hey, will you look at our no bids and explain to us what we should do to fix them? So one of the items was marriage counseling.
Yeah, who wants to bid on that?
And I was like,
You should change the title.
I think the guy's name was Charles. I'm like, Charles, nobody here wants you to know that they need marriage counseling.
Hi, I'm here to pick up my item, marriage counseling.
That's right.
Hello. And you're
I got
checkout
10
people are
substance
like-
abuse sessions.
Exactly.
the checkout people are like, here you go,
Here
Miss
you go.
Dupolshay.
That's
Yeah, you
right.
might want to
Luck
look at
with
those
that.
items. Those are awesome. That's funny.
Oh my
Yeah, you could just
gosh.
change the title on that one.
Maybe. Or just, some of these things, maybe you put them in a raffle.
Ooh, very good.
That's a whole nother podcast,
So
raffles.
random.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, I can't believe I used that word.
I can't believe you did either.
That is
a bad word.
It's banned. Word.
Right.
Awesome.
Okay, anything else on bid sheets? That was good. Oh, and then the other minor stuff like people can't read your handwriting, which is always the best when I'm like, I love how Europeans make their ones and they look like sevens to me. And I was at this one auction and I'm like, I think that's 116, but it could be 776 because we had that many bid numbers. I am not sure.
I mean, I think
So
at this
fun.
point, bid sheets are a thing of the past. I haven't seen them at an event in a really, really long. I mean, obviously, I work in mobile bidding software, so if I walked into an event and had bid sheets, I would be like, "What?"
Yeah.
But even in just like my regular life and the fundraisers I go to, I mean, it's pretty rare to see.
We talked to
paper
plenty
bid
of people that
sheets.
are coming from paper bid sheets,
Ugh.
so they're still out there.
You-
You're going to
let
make a
them
lot more
go.
money when you get
Let
rid
them
of them.
go.
Trust me,
Mm-hmm.
it is a big cost, and we used to say that, right? Like the hidden costs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the bid increments and all that other kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So let's talk about something different. So let's talk about the auction area itself,
Ah, yes.
because we've been to so many of these things, and I think a lot of times people don't realize you've built a retail shop,
Yeah.
right?
It's merchandise.
Yep.
So as we like to say, like, instead of it looking like a garage sale, or as like a good friend of mine used to say, a garage sale is just missing the B. So if you add a B into the middle of that word, it's what it really is, a garbage sale, right? So
I was going with a barrage sale.
garage,
I was like, what?
A barrage
Okay,
sale.
this is hilarious. I never heard that before.
but
Garbage
it
sale.
needs to be
Garbage
more
sale.
like the Apple Store,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
so and I think they kind of changed. And we're not here to just come, obviously, just like woo on Apple, but they did a nice job on the retail side because their stores are very bright and they're very clean.
Clean.
And when we say clean, there's not a lot of clutter,
Yep.
right? And so,
Hide the boxes, the storage boxes away for your items.
yes,
Have a clean space.
It's
yes.
aesthetically pleasing. You look across and you go like, oh, I want to browse. I want to walk around.
And can
I
we
want-
talk about elevating the items if we're elevating our event? Let's
Yeah.
talk about elevating the items. The items should be all different levels. It should just
How do you
have
do that, Lori?
lighting.
What do you do?
I like to use boxes, the
Oh.
storage boxes for the item,
Oh my
And
god!
then put
you're
a-
genius.
and put a cover over top.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're going for
Tablecloth.
some sort of
With lights.
strange
Like that, I'm telling you.
lights for
like,
sure.
Everybody's like, I'm going to make my event fancy or kind of this like nice, elegant gala. And then they flip the lights down and I can't read anything in there. So your auction area needs to be well lit. It doesn't have to be as bright as the Apple Store, but I mean, people need to be able to see the stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? So, little spotlights, or I went to one event and they just kind of built like, I don't know what you call it, but uprights and had spotlights pointing down.
Ooh,
It looked really, really good.
Yeah, we've been to events where they have these gooseneck lights that are battery operated, and it's nice because the light can get tilted in various ways. So depending on how you have everything set up.
and Amazon, oh my goodness, nowadays you can buy these little lights that are battery powered and you turn them on. They're all different colors. You can put them right next to the item.
Oh,
So yeah,
so nice.
I know.
So
And they're
lighting
cheap,
for
cheap.
sure. Lighting for sure.
Okay.
Maybe spacing them out a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. You got to be a little careful depending on your auction. And obviously if it's the people that you know coming, it's one thing, but do be a little bit careful about what you put out. Because we've been auctions where people have taken that baseball card and it's little sleeve and just stuck it in their pocket and walked out. So
Or gift
Seen
cards.
it.
yes, gift
Yeah.
cards. Don't
Gift
put the
cards
gift
should
cards
never
out.
be on the table.
We've seen that. Like
Yes.
one group had the gift card tree and they had them all on it. We're like, ooh, yeah,
no.
let's take those off.
Put the gift card covers on the gift card tree,
Yes.
not the actual gift card itself.
The envelopes are perfect
Yes.
to go on there. So, but that was side topic on auction security, which can be a whole nother podcast.
Auction security. How about the ability to walk all around the tables
Spacing.
and spacing of the tables and think about how many people you have coming to your event and how much space it is. So I went to one event. It was so interesting. Everybody walked into the event and then they all turned right and got in line and followed each other through
Like
the
a
silent
buffet.
auction area like a buffet. And
Like
I
an
was
IKEA, almost.
it was like IKEA. And I had never seen such a thing.
How do I
was
get
like-
out of this maze?
I was
Where's
like,
the shortcut?
I said, is the bar that way? Why is everybody standing? And they're like, they're just going to look at the silent auction.
Oh
I'm like,
my gosh.
why are they all in line?
Yeah,
They shouldn't
yeah.
have to wait in line to look at your silent auction. It should be just a free
You should be
flowing-
flattered. If they're waiting in line to see your silent auction, congratulations, by the way.
I was astounded. I was like, is the bar over there? What's going on?
That's so
It was
funny.
really interesting.
That is awesome.
It is. Yeah.
No, we do this one event, every year, and they kind of finally converted it to like this like IKEA maze, and then they set it up where you you had to go through it. And it was funny. People walk in this tent and they're like, where do I go? We're like, that way.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
they just wound through. It worked.
It did work.
Oh my God, it totally worked.
That's
You know.
right. You were there for
I
the
was
first
there for that
time.
event. Yes, I
Yeah,
was.
Yes.
One of my favorite events that I worked for silent auction, which I thought was completely unique, is we were in a museum and they put the silent auction items all throughout the museum. And so people were walking through and perusing the items, and it was just so free flowing and casual and cool. So it's kind of, as opposed to this formal room of silent auction, which I still like that. Don't get me wrong. There's so many reasons.
As long
to
as
like
the
it in a
room's
room.
accessible. Like when
Yes.
the auctioneer is like over there
Yeah.
and it's kind of out of the way of things, that's not always a good idea. Right?
Yeah, I actually hear more and more of that's kind of spreading around the auction items throughout the whole venue. I'm
Yeah.
starting to hear more of that.
I'm
Coming
kind
out
of
the
leaning that
box
way.
Yeah,
I'm kind of leaning that way. It's because, we're kind of moving. Events have moved a little bit away from, especially after COVID, from these real formal events into these more casual environments, even food trucks and things like that. Whole nother topic. But having that kind of same casual feeling for silent auction items is kind of a fun thing as well. Just make sure you have a good plan for checkout. Just think about that when
I
you're
know.
doing that.
I love
moving
the fact
items.
that you've jumped right to that because you're like, I know
My brain
the
immediately-
problem.
Yes, the problem
that
with
could
that.
occur if you don't think that through.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got to think it
You
through.
mean when all of your auction items are all over the
All
place
over the
now and you
place.
don't know where they are?
On 3 floors?
3 floors.
And the
We've been
auction
to
is
that event.
closed.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Now what?
Yes.
Even though I like the silent
Especially
auction
when you
items.
don't like number your items in a way that tells you what floor they're on and you have to walk across 3 floors looking for it. That's even better.
No, what's great is you can put your Apple Watch on for your activity, and then you can, during checkout, just run from floor to floor to floor, and you can see how many calories you burnt.
Exactly.
There you go.
love it.
Positive spin on that.
I love it. So before we run out of time, I really want to touch on the names of silent auction items. I think that is so important.
Yeah. And we can
So-
dive into this deeper in another podcast, but dive in.
Well, I think that being creative is impactful, but when I go and look at an auction and I'm doing what might be considered an auction health check, and I look and every item is so obscure with their description in the item name that I don't know what it is. I personally, this is my opinion, but I like to go to look at an auction and see some of them are they're direct. And then some items, maybe just a smattering, are they make you, they're a little bit like clickbait. They're like, what is this item? I don't know what before and after means. So that might mean like golf and lunch afterwards, right? But you don't want all of your
Cute.
items to be like that because
No.
that's making your donors burn a lot of calories to figure out what's out there. But to that note, I do think that it can be playful and fun. So can y'all think of, and I have 2 in my mind, but can you think of a fun item that you've seen recently that has a good item name? I know one that you named one time.
Yeah.
Y'all, I have to give Jeff this credit. This was so fun. So we go to this event and it's filled with golfing and libation. Again, with the libation. So we happened to have, we were consulting with a client and we had all these items that we had to package. And one of them was a foursome and one of them was a giant bottle of vodka. And I was like, well, why don't we put this together as a package? What do we call it? And so silence. And then Jeff goes, I got it. I was like, well, what is it? And he said, the only way to drink and drive.
That's cute.
That was
Isn't
cute.
that a good
Yeah.
one? So one of my personal favorites that I came up with, yes, I'm patting myself on the back, is when I was an auction manager for my daughter's elementary school. I think we had about 350 items, and when you package items, you kind of get down to the stragglers, and then you're like, what the heck do we do with these? So I had 2 tickets to see the Wizard of Oz in Arlington, Virginia, and I had the Cheesecake Factory. they were pretty obscure. I didn't want to do those as standalones. And I might have had maybe 4 or 5 of these items. I don't remember what the other ones were. And I thought, well, I wonder if I can just do both of those together. And then it would be like I could sell it almost like a dinner out, and then you go to your show. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. And I left my computer and I went about my day. And then later I was like, I know what I'm going to call this item. So remember, it's Wizard of Oz and it's the Cheesecake Factory. So y'all want to know what I called it? Cheese Whiz.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
But I love it when you kind of play around with item names with live auction items, because they're going to talk about it anyway at the live auction. They're not going to bid on it, you know, on the phone or whatnot. They're going to see it, but they're not going to be able to do anything. So I love that for a live auction. So just be super fun and creative with live auction, because why not?
We'll dive into this in a future, because there's been some hilarious items, and we've named some of them, right? But sometimes, you know, you'll go through and I'll be like, what the heck is that? And I'll change it. Like, you know, when they're like, ooh, do an auction health check. Show us how we can make our event better. I'm like, how about we just call this dinner for 2 at, you know, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse?
Yeah, because somebody would be,
yes.
Right?
Direct.
Versus whatever you called it that has no idea what it is, right? Let's just beat it to the chase.
A steak through my heart.
Exactly.
I think one thing we don't want to forget is when working with software and you're writing down the name of an item, don't just assume that people know what it is. To your point, the obscurity. I worked in an event where they were like, gift card to the I'll just say Cheesecake Factory, since we were talking about that. Gift card to the Cheesecake Factory. That's it.
No, I want to know how much.
No dollar amount?
$100.
No dollar amount. And so I was going in there at the event going, what's the dollar amount? Let's put it in the description. So especially if you're doing a basket or anything like that, and you have an online platform where people that aren't at the event might want to know what's in the basket, just bullet point it out. Point it out. Let them know what they're getting and what the total value is of that item.
And for wine. And we'll get into that in a future one, because
good one.
People that are bidding on wine want to not just know that it's a bottle of red wine, which I've seen before.
Oh, yes.
I have seen
so
the same
many
thing.
Times.
3 bottles of red wine.
Oh, my gosh. What on earth?
Is it like $2 Chuck? Am I getting, what am I getting here? So making sure that you bullet point that out in the description, and then any sort of fine print that anybody needs to know, make sure you add that
now
as well.
I'm excited, because now we know there's going to be a podcast topic we'll dive into at some point on that.
Yeah. I love that.
Right.
That would be really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we are running out of time. This has been absolutely fabulous.
I feel like we could have kept going.
Oh, my
but
gosh.
Yeah.
We could have.
We
There
do
could be a
have
part
busy
2 to this.
day. There could be part 2. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. This was fun.
Yeah, let us know if there's any other questions you have about silent auctions, and we can certainly try to address those in a future podcast. But otherwise, I thank you guys so much for coming and sharing your time with us
Thanks
today.
for inviting us.
Yeah, this was fun.
Until we see you guys again, have a great event.